Everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, nationwide effort to completely transform one of the most recognizable vehicles on the road, the classic yellow school bus. I am absolutely thrilled to walk you through this, because it's a perfect example of how sweeping infrastructure policy actually touches our daily lives. We are looking at a truly historic federal initiative aimed at overhauling an entire national fleet.
Okay, let's jump right in. I want you to rethink a childhood staple that, well, might actually be a bit more dangerous than it looks. When you see that iconic yellow bus driving down your street, you're probably thinking of safety, education, community. But today we're going to explore the invisible exhaust trailing right behind it, and more importantly, what's actually seeping inside of it.
25 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That staggering figure represents the American children who rely on these buses every single day to get to and from school. And the crazy thing is, they, along with the drivers and the school staff, are mostly completely unaware of the hidden danger they might be breathing in during what really should be the safest part of their day.
Section 1. The hidden cost of commuting.
So here's the absolute crucial point. These older legacy diesel engines, specifically, we're talking about model year 2010 or older, which predate current emission standards, they are just pumping out pollutants, things like nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, and carbon monoxide. And look, these aren't just harmless clouds of smoke. They're directly linked to severe respiratory issues. We're talking inflammation, reduced lung function, and increased asthma attacks. And because kids naturally have faster breathing rates than adults, and their lungs are still developing, they, along with pregnant women, are especially vulnerable to this toxic air.
And this right here is exactly why this matters to you and your local community. The danger isn't just outside on the road. Actually, because of leaky cabins or just open windows and doors, this diesel exhaust can enter the school bus directly, meaning the concentration of pollutants trapped inside that cabin with the kids can actually be up to 10 times higher than the ambient air outside. Just think about that.
Section 2. Enter the clean school bus.
So, enter the EPA's Clean School Bus program. This is what the future looks like. A zero-emission, all-electric school bus. The entire mission of this program is to replace those high-emitting legacy diesel buses with zero-emission and low-emission alternatives, which includes both electric and propane models. And to actually make this happen, the funding here is just truly unprecedented. Fueled by the bipartisan infrastructure law, this is a monumental 5-year investment of $5 billion. $5 billion! It really highlights the sheer scale of the government's commitment here. We're talking about upgrading our nation's fleet of nearly 500,000 school buses between fiscal years 2022 and 2026. It's a massive undertaking.
But here's what's kind of cool. These electric buses aren't just protecting kids' lungs. They actually bring some massive secondary benefits. First off, lower operational and maintenance costs compared to diesel, which frees up much-needed resources for the schools. Plus, the rides are way quieter, which drastically reduces sensory overload for students with disabilities. And incredibly, through vehicle-to-grid and vehicle-to-building tech, these buses can basically act as giant mobile batteries. When they aren't transporting kids, they can store and return surplus energy to the local power grid, or, get this, literally keep the school's lights on during a storm-related power outage. How amazing is that?
Moving on to Section 3, rebates, grants, and scrappage.
Distributing $5 billion is no small feat, so the EPA smartly splits the funding into 2 distinct pathways to accommodate different types of school districts. The rebate program is this quick, simple lottery process perfectly designed for transitioning smaller fleets, so you don't need massive administrative overhead. Then on the flip side, the grant program is a longer, much more detailed application evaluated by strict scoring criteria, and that one's aimed at larger fleet transitions and complex projects. Basically, it ensures every type of community gets a fair shot at the funds.
But there's a catch. To make absolutely sure this pollution isn't just, sold off and transferred to another neighborhood down the road, the EPA mandates a super strict scrappage rule for those 2010 or older buses. Once a district gets their shiny new bus, they must permanently disable the old one. This literally involves cutting a hole straight into the engine block and cutting or crushing the chassis rail.
As you can see, the process looks incredibly severe. But this brutal, necessary physical destruction is really the only way to guarantee that those legacy, high-emitting engines will never pollute a neighborhood's air ever again. It just physically removes the hazard from the board entirely.
Section 4. Prioritizing the most vulnerable.
Now, we have to talk about the Justice 40 initiative, because low-income and minority students are historically way more likely to ride the oldest buses and suffer from uncontrolled asthma, which, by the way, is actually the leading cause of chronic school absenteeism in the U.S. This federal initiative legally anchors the program in public health equity. It basically ensures that 40% of the overall benefits of these investments flow directly to disadvantaged communities that have been marginalized and overburdened by pollution.
And while the mandate is 40%, the on-the-ground reality of the Clean School Bus Program is even better. Approximately 75% of the school districts awarded EPA funding are defined as high-need, rural, or tribal. It's proved that the vast majority of these funds are flowing straight into the communities that need them the absolute most. Also, equity isn't just about geography or income, right? It's heavily focused on accessibility. There are over 7 million K-12 students with disabilities in the U.S. So, to avoid just replicating pre-existing transportation barriers, the program specifically offers up to $20,000 in bonus funding per bus to build ADA-compliant wheelchair lifts. Toss in those quieter electric engines that reduce sensory overload, and you've got a safer, far more comfortable ride for students with physical and mental disabilities. It's a real game changer.
All right, let's look at Section 5, the road ahead and real outcomes.
Research into previous EPA rebate funding found that getting rid of the oldest, dirtiest buses doesn't just clear the air, it literally keeps kids in the classroom. We are talking about over 350,000 estimated additional student attendance days every single year. Better yet, when school districts replaced their oldest pre-1990 model buses, they saw a 10% increase in reading and language arts scores and a 4% increase in math scores. That is huge. Cleaner air translates directly to better learning.
And this rollout? It's happening incredibly fast. By the end of fiscal year 2024, the EPA had already awarded almost $3 billion to fund over 8,500 replacement buses. This covers all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and several territories and tribes, permanently changing the transportation infrastructure of over 1,200 school districts. Right now, new charging infrastructure is popping up in bus depots across the entire country to support this growing fleet.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to investigate in your own community. Tomorrow morning, when the neighborhood kids are waiting at the corner, what exactly is coming out of the tailpipe of the bus idling outside your local school? Are you looking at a legacy polluter or the quiet, clean hum of the future? Thanks so much for learning with me today.